the request to the Brooklyn Posse.
Hello and welcome to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. It is Fitz Friday and I am joined by not just one special guest, but two special guests. Hi, Cinthanie. What's up, girl?
Hey, girl. Hey.
We can't forget that. And then today's special guest is Mr. Russ Conser. What's up, my friend?
Hi, Lauren. Hi, Cinthanie. How are you?
We are doing so good. So we are live on both YouTube and Facebook right now. And every single Friday, we start people's Friday morning off with Fitz Friday Live. This is a quick episode so that we can give people a taste of knowledge of all different things to help them be more Fitz and healthy. And you and I got connected because a common friend that we know follows me online and knows that I am a stickler about grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And they were like, messaged and was like, you need to be connected to this dude. He is like known for this, spoken at Paleo FX. He's good friends with important people in this world of trying to change and empower people with knowledge. And so you and I connected and we had a nice conversation while you were driving through East Texas. And so tell the audience who you are and what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, we're going to follow your lead in whatever we talk about today. So that'll be fun. But who I am, I grew up in the Midwest, so I came from a farm state, but I don't know anything about agriculture. To me, farming was a place you go to visit your cousins for Thanksgiving. But I became an engineer and interested in energy. I spent 30 years in energy, in oil and gas specifically, and I became interested in agriculture very indirectly. After I'd already understood the importance of grass-fed beef for my health, I heard some claims about how beef production done rightly could change how our land and ecosystems function in a way that could sequester carbon and have an impact on climate and the environment. And I said, well, that's really interesting. And I started looking into it and spent a lot of time with some people there and decided, hey, this is not only good for the health of my body, it's good for the health of the planet. So now I'm on the board of the Grass-Fed Exchange, an industry association promoting pasture-based beef production. I've started a company to go into the production myself. And that's who I am now.
So it's crazy. You are like me in the fact that you went into engineering. I went to med school. We went into these like brainiac type career fields, really having no desire to ever do anything with health, nutrition, whatnot. And we both kind of ended up in the same area.
Yeah. And by serendipity, in my case, it was, through some health issues of my dad that I started because I was in that geeky space where I learned how to read and understand and apply science. In fact, I used to lead a breakthrough energy technology research group at Shell called Game Changer. So my day job was investing in heresies, if you will, in energy technology. And when I realized my dad's health wasn't working right, I started looking into food. I was really like, holy cow, everything I thought I knew about healthy food was wrong. Mm-hmm. And it sent me down a new direction. And serendipity led to serendipity, and here I am in the agriculture business now. So there you go.
If you don't mind, can you let the audience know what health concerns or health issues your dad was facing?
It was neurodegeneration. He was losing his mental capacity, and things weren't working right. Lauren, you and I talked about the first moment for me was when he came back from his cardiologist and he said his cholesterol was very, very low. So his heart was good, even though his brain was failing. And I said, Dad, that doesn't sound good. That sounds like it might be a sign. Then we started peeling things apart. I started reading the science and lo and behold, I discovered everything I thought I knew about healthy food was exactly wrong.
And I want to make sure the listeners really heard what you said, because I think too often we ignore our gut and like just common sense. Because here you had your father who you knew it doesn't take a medical degree to look at him and say, you're not doing well. But the cardiologist just said he's doing well because his cholesterol is really low. Right. And this is one of the many myths that we are trying to unteach all of the people, including myself. I mean, as a medical doctor, right. I told so many patients to follow a low fat, low cholesterol diet, exercise more and eat less, blah, blah, blah. And come to find out, it's just all wrong.
Yeah. It's more complicated than that. Nature's, things like cholesterol, there's symbols of something that's working or not working well in your body, but it's just a symbol. It's not a cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to look at whole systems, and that's really hard. We all like to take things and reduce them down to isolated topics that we can fix with the silver bullet, a magic pill.
Mm-hmm. A magic statin, if you will.
Magic statin, if you will. It's just an example, but in agriculture, magic fertilizer, magic pesticide, they're all the same thing.
Right.
And what I've learned by following these regenerative farmers is one of my friends who's an insect scientist in South Dakota had a funny little TED talk that he shared with me yesterday. And he said, what I think, I look at these regenerative farmers like insects. They have like thousands of eyes on their head, and they all integrate varied information, and they pull it together, and they make decisions in their pastures and farms that allow them to grow better soil and better crops and better food. So that ability to synthesize signals coming from many, many different directions and integrate it into something that's a key decision to take the whole system forward, it's hard. Now, I think we humans overthink things. Animals just know, right?
It's called human nature.
Yeah, human nature. We tend to get too logical and we make things complicated. So I actually think your first comment was absolutely true. Go with your gut, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that you can do a lot. I've spent a lot of time as an analytical engineer. I like numbers. I track all kinds of stuff. As I mentioned to you, Lauren, when we first talked, I'm probably the only guy in the history of the universe to actually go out to the farm where I buy my own family's meat from right now and measure his soil properties, right? It was just like, I'm that kind of geek.
When you told me that, I was like, yes, another geeky person like myself.
Yeah. No, I'm a total data geek. But that said, I've had to learn for myself, say in the last 5 or 6 years, that I have to listen to my body. I have to listen to my health. And that's the same thing that there's regenerative farmers are doing that are pioneering this out there, is they're all figuring out, how do I listen to my pasture, listen to my land, listen to my, and the smart ones are getting a shovel out and they're listening to the microbes and the insects. They're looking at the worms, the dung beetles. These things are the important signs of a healthy ecosystem that produces the food, that produces the healthy food that makes us healthy.
Right. So I can already hear all of the thoughts from all of the people that are watching right now. And they're like, okay, one, you're way smarter than me. How am I supposed to apply this? Right. Okay. But more importantly, how does this affect the common, most American? I mean, this is pertinent to everyone in the world. Let's just put that out there. But obviously, here in the United States, I think we've done an extra special job of screwing up our soil and not respecting animals like cattle in the way in which we raise them and bring them to be able to be consumed by us Americans. So speak to that person that's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Where do I start?
So maybe the first thought, a little phrase I like to use, it's not the cow, it's the how. And one of my good friends, Diana Rogers, she runs a website called Sustainable Dish, is going to take that and riff on it now in a movie called Kale versus Cow.
I like that.
That your listeners might enjoy going to take a look at. And the idea is it's not the thing that's the problem. It's how we as humans manage the thing that's the problem. So in producing healthy food, it's the techniques on how we manage the interaction of the cow and the landscape. In our lives, it's how we manage the interaction of ourselves and our daily environment and our food. And I went through all of this complicated science. Oh my goodness, you might be able to see.
We see lots of books in the background.
Books.
Oh, jeez.
If you look at my desk, I'm one of these people that I print and I read and I read and I read and I read. But I think at the end of the day, it reduces down to some really, really simple things. So from a health and nutrition perspective, eat real food, fresh and in season, that's flavorful, that makes you feel good. And don't overcomplicate it other than that, And a lot of things aren't real food. In the case of beef production, I totally understand why our livestock production system went the way it did.
Right.
If you take each isolated problem, and try to fix it. How do I grow more something that I could feed the cows? How can I keep more cows per acre? You end up inevitably with a feedlot.
Right.
And it really is a cheaper way to produce the food right now. And there's a lot of people, doing the best they can to make that environment positive and healthy. But what I see when I see the people that is like, okay, how do I get this ecosystem in a pasture to work? They can also produce a cost competitive product that is simultaneously of a very good quality, that when you take a bite of it, you go, oh, you know, I didn't realize that's what it's supposed to look like. You know, I look back at my own life, and so I'm now 56 years old, and I didn't discover this stuff till I was about 51. And I just look at my wife and I go, why have I been eating food out of boxes for 50 years? You know, I grew up in the age of Velveeta cheese and Tang and Spam and, you know, TV dinners. Banquet pot pies used to be my favorite as a kid, man. Spaghetti, right?
Yep.
To me, these were wonders of the 20th century industry. And then I realized, oh my God, I wasted 50 years, because real food, when it's fresh, when it comes from healthy soil, is just like, I feel like when I have a good pork chop, I feel like I'm eating crack cocaine. You know, it's just right?
Not that you've ever had crack cocaine. Let's just put that out there.
Exactly.
Okay?
Put that out
But
there.
just because it's so good.
It's so good. The real nourishing food, it speaks to your body in a way that's almost spiritual.
Yes.
And I think that's because your body recognizes it. It'll be generations before geeky scientists like me can put that all in math and algorithms and calculate it out. But I think people that just eat nourishing food that comes from healthy farms and soils, you know, they'll get that immediate satisfaction, and it'll be an important part of getting their own health straight.
So your website, grassfedexchange.com.
Yep.
What is what was your vision when you decided to come up with that website? And
it wasn't my vision. In fact, I was a latecomer to the community. There was a vision amongst a group of regenerative farmers that they needed to work with each other to teach each other what they learned about how to do these things in practice.
Okay.
They started about 10 years ago. About 4 years ago, they made the mistake of inviting me to come speak at their conference. I gave a banquet and a keynote conference about how, gee, if only, and it's a bit anecdotal, so please don't take it too far, but you know, what the heck? I said, did you realize that if I took a ribeye steak from one of your farms, that the amount of carbon sequestered in the process of producing that nice, juicy 16-ounce ribeye, a nice, big ribeye, is the equivalent that offsets the amount of CO2 that would be emitted if you went 25 miles each way to work every day?
Really?
And I'm like,
for
really?
one ribeye?
And they said like, oh, that's interesting. And they said, Russ, you seem to think differently about some of this stuff. They asked me
just a little.
So anyhow, I'm now a part of that community, and we're working to extend this application of regenerative agriculture more and more to teach more farmers, because indeed, not only do they produce healthier food for us, but as farms, I mean, gosh, my heart feels, it truly bleeds. Farmers in this country do us, you know, they're serving one of the most important functions, but it's really hard to make a living. There was an article, I think it was in the New York Times last week, about just farmers' suicide rates are double what military suicide rates are. Can you believe that?
No.
That's an epidemic.
It's an epidemic. Yeah. Our food system is broken. Yeah. But the farmers who are applying regenerative principles, they're figuring out how to run better businesses, because when you listen to your pasture, when you adapt to your cropland, you're able to produce not only a better quality food, but you're no longer spending money for fertilizer and pesticides and tractors and plowing. And
right.
So the business gets better as well, and their livelihoods improve. So we're on a mission as the Grass-Fed Exchange to help farmers learn from each other on how to do this. It's a real how-to based organization. It's not like we should do this because it's good for humanity. There's a little bit of that maybe, but for the most part, it's like, okay, if that's true, how do I do it? You know, what kind of cattle do I get? What kind of sheep do I get? It's not just about cattle. Even if I'm not producing grass-finished beef all the way to finishing, if I'm just producing calves that might go later into a traditional production system, how can I do that in a way that's healthiest for me as a business, healthy for the environment, et cetera, like that? So it's a learning organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit educational association.
So then a consumer like myself or Cinthanie who wants to, because essentially I found in my 30s, this journey, this discovery of really just trying to get back to nature, trying to get back to the way Mother Nature designed everything, from the littlest things to the biggest things, and really starting to care about how we treat this earth. So just obviously, I'm not going to start a farm. I'm not going to start growing my own, so how can consumers like Cinthanie and I, who believe in the cause and want to help move this cause forward, how do we help?
The good news is I think you are helping, and you can help by making simple purchasing decisions when you choose to buy a product. Again, I'm the geeky guy that not only goes out and measure my farmer's soil, but I drive all the way to his farm because I've measured a lot of soils and I've seen a lot of people, and I know he's doing it really, really good. So I drive 2 hours away from my house with my truck, and I load up beef that I bring back and put in my freezer. And that doesn't work for everybody else. But there are others.
What about those people that don't have time to do that?
Yeah, exactly. So right now, I would say that the best quality product is available through online channels.
Okay.
You're in Southern California. I think there's a pasture-based chicken production company called Pasture Bird that's rocking along pretty quick. US Wellness Meats is probably the largest and most complete direct marketing company for pasture-based chicken, beef, lamb, pork. My friend John Wood, who is one of the founders of the Grass-Fed Exchange, just recently rotated off our board, runs US Wellness. So uswellness.com will get you there. And I think that takes you into grasslandbeef.com, actually, is where they retail out of. Joyce Farms is premium grass-fed beef. So they sell Choice and Prime grass-fed beef. But, there's an increasing array of direct marketing things. In general, the way I would advise people is first look in your neighborhood. Look, because I think it's really good that you know your farmer, even if you only see him at the farmer's market once in a while. But start there. And if you don't find something there, then go to one of these online or direct marketing groups like US Wellness. And that's where I started. Literally, in fact, it's a bit of a funny thing. I was a customer of John Wood and US Wellness, and very happy. He'd been feeding my family for a few years. When I went to the first Grass-Fed Exchange in 2013 at Gabe Brown's farm in North Dakota, and I was like a groupie. I'm like, oh my God, that's John Wood. John, can I get my picture with you? I go over there, take a selfie with John Wood, and now John's a great friend. Because awesome. I really appreciate the food that he brings to me and my family and many others across the country.
So can you break down for the listeners what regenerative agriculture is? What does that mean when you say that?
So I'm sure a lot of listeners have heard the word sustainable. But a lot of the leading farmers are saying, why do I sustain something that's broken? We talked earlier about sustainable farming and our current farming system. And so the word regenerative is to say, I can not only do something that's less bad, it can be actively more good. And regenerative farming is farming that takes the land and makes it better than when you started. And so when these farmers are doing regenerative practices, they find that they simultaneously improve soil health. It changes how water infiltrates on the land. So they capture water so they don't suffer drought. They're also not using fertilizer and pesticides that run down the rivers and kill the fish and birds. And more grass grows, so they produce even more healthy food, and there's more nutrients in the grass. And so you get into this virtuous cycle of production with regenerative agriculture. Whereas in conventional agriculture, we're on a decline, and in sustainable agriculture, we're just trying to hold on to what we have. So regenerative is about taking the thing we start with and making it better.
I love that. And the people like us that aren't going to be starting our own farms, we help support those farms with our dollar. And the only way that those farms will continue to grow and to go in the right direction is for people like us that have no desire to ever start your own farm, but desire to be our healthiest, very best selves. We have to speak with our dollar. And that's, that's supporting your local your local farmers markets, and that's why I love, like, when I told my mom that there is a local place close to Waco, she was like, oh my gosh, you're kidding. Cause she had looked unsuccessfully, but it's one of those things. The more that we talk about it, the more that we, educate people and use our voice, whether it be Facebook Live, podcast, or whatever. This is how we are going to turn the food crisis around and save our grandchildren and generations beyond.
Yeah. So let's start by looking local, and then, reach further as we need to. And then as we get the dollars flowing to these people, I can't wait. You need to send me a selfie when your mom goes down to Greenfields Farm and meets my friends, Jonathan and Kaylin, right?
Well, I'm going to Waco for the holidays. And so I actually plan on going, I might as well even do a live broadcast from there. I could even record a podcast on site if they have good internet.
Yeah, they can. Jonathan just sent me a text message this morning of a hawk soaring over him as he was out in the pasture last night.
Nice.
We started this project for carbon sequestration. I called it Meadowlark because I came from Nebraska, where the meadowlark was the state bird. And I learned that the meadowlark had declined substantially over the last 100 years because of the lost grassland habitat. One of the things that's really cool when you go to these farms is you find they're full of life again. All the insects, the bees, the butterflies. Jonathan has beehives. The birds. When I told Jonathan about the meadowlarks, and he goes, "Oh yeah, we have lots of those." And he sent me a little video clip from his pasture, right? So
that's awesome.
Anyhow, if you get down to their place,
Oh, it's not if. I will. I'm with my family for almost 2 weeks, so I'm pretty excited about it. And everyone that's in my life that I love and care about is now on the bandwagon and understanding why it's important to care, why it's important to pay the extra $1 or $2 or whatever the extra amount is, because it is. I mean, I always say you will never own a more valuable vehicle than your body. I live in Southern California, where I see Bentleys and Rolls Royces every day, and our bodies are worth so much more than these crazy expensive cars. But we don't even decide to put premium gas in our own fuel tank, and everyone in my circle now cares about this, and it spreads like wildfire.
And at a system level, we come out ahead as well. So I was like a typical American. I had my pills from the pharmacy in the cabinet. I don't take any medicines anymore.
I was about to say, I hear past tense.
I still have health insurance, but I don't use it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I lost 30 pounds almost immediately. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have been through some experience in changing their diets. And I didn't even realize I wasn't healthy, right? I just thought this is what Americans do. We're a little bit bloated. We're a little bit slow. We all have medications.
Brain fog.
But it's not necessary. If you eat real food, you don't need that.
No.
Our dollar is an exchange for, instead of paying for medical bills later on from neglecting our health earlier on, it's just investing in our health through our food versus supplements and medical bills.
That's right.
And see, when I see someone like you, Cinthanie, it makes me so grateful for the fact that you are learning this at such a young age, because she's our millennial. She represents the voice of the millennial. Awesome. And I so wish that when I was in my young 20s, I would have had someone come around and be like, look, this is really important, Yeah. And if you change this now, it will change not just your own health, but the health of your family, the health of your children, your unborn children's children, generations.
Yeah.
And the health of the planet.
That too.
It's just really crazy.
Minor detail.
Right? So these things are all connected. You can't have one thing healthy and the other thing sick if you're working at the system level. That's the really cool thing. So healthy waters, healthy streams. I live down here in the Gulf Coast. There's restricted fishing seasons because there's too much fertilizer in Iowa, right? That runs down the Mississippi River, contaminates everything here. So it's all connected. And once you realize it's all connected, the solutions are profoundly simple. And we just have to not overcomplicate things.
More easily said than done, but we're on a mission to help that. Right. So we on Friday mornings, we usually take questions from people that watch us and spend the morning with us. And so Cinthanie, that is her job to look at the questions and see if there are any questions that are pertinent to what we're talking about. So do we have any questions that we want to address yet?
So I don't see any questions because I think everybody's probably just fascinated with the information that they're receiving right now.
Right.
Because Lauren and I always talk about grass-fed, grass-finished, and they're probably like, okay, cool, but why? So I think that everybody's just digesting this information.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll start off with a question then while everyone decides if they're going to be brave enough to ask a question. But my question is, if I am just starting and I am in a place, because I mean, Southern California, obviously I've got access to high quality everything, right? But let's talk to the person that's like in the deep South. That I mean, that's one thing I hear all the time. You know, I have to travel, you know, hours to get to the closest Whole Foods or Whole Foods like market to get healthy food and whatnot. So talk to that person, that standard American person who has been eating the standard American diet, conventionally raised beef, conventionally raised everything. And where do they start? Because they want to start with their health, but also start caring about the planet. So where do they start?
Well, I think they can start with some of these direct marketing places. That's where I certainly started. US Wellness, you don't even have to move. You know, move your mouse, click on a box, and a box shows up at your door.
Do they deliver all throughout the U.S.?
Yes, they'll deliver all throughout the U.S.
So that's a good place to start then, because a lot
it's
of people
a really
are
good
asking.
place to start, and you'll find a wide selection of pastured food and healthy products there.
Okay.
And they'll deliver anywhere. But if you're in the deep South, again, look for places, if you can, that are closer to you. So my friend Will Harris runs a great outfit out of Bluffton, Georgia. It's about 2 hours or so south of Atlanta. It's in a very poor part of the state called White Oak Pastures. So if you go to whiteoakpastures.com,
okay.
You know, if you're in the South, go to White Oak Pastures. Don't go to US Wellness, maybe, you know, because you get something started. And Will Harris, if you want to see Will, he's a wonderful human being as well. My good friend Peter Bick made a movie about Will called 100,000 Beating Hearts.
Okay.
I think if you put that in quotes in Google, you'll get the video. And you can go down to Will's place and take a tour too. Take the kids out for a visit. In fact, at White Oak Pastures, they even have a couple of guest cabins scattered around the properties. So if you want to turn it into a little vacation, you can do that as well. Will's got it's kind of a funny story, but I think it puts an exclamation mark on the reality of regenerative agriculture. So Will runs beef, lamb, pork, chicken, duck, turkey, all this other kind of stuff. But he's got the largest pastured chicken production facility outdoors over there. And he's done such a good job with it that the bald eagles have figured it out. So he's gone from a few bald eagles. Last count I heard was something like 75 bald eagles sitting on his property, living there. And he's starting to lose a lot of chickens to the bald eagles. And it becomes
wow, yeah.
In fact, it was funny. I wish I had my camera out. I was driving down a road at Will's place one day, and I looked out, and here's two bald eagles sitting in the pasture next to the chickens. And they're just like, the chickens aren't stressed. The bald eagles are just sitting there going, which one should I grab for dinner?
My God.
You know, and that's because Will's little 3,000 acres there is an island of regenerativeness in the middle of a sea of degradation, right? Yeah. And so all these birds in that region know to go there. Well, if you're in the South, get in the car and go take a look yourself there.
Well, I think that's also a great lesson to teach your kids as a parent is that, I mean, if this is some of their first memories as a child, that we're visiting farms that are responsible and actually care about this earth and care about your health. And I mean, that gets into the brain of these kids early. And that's where we want to start, right? Yeah,
totally. I think you start with the best place to get back into nature is in the food production system. I always tell people, if you want to change a kid's life, teach them how to garden. I think a lot of people don't even know where food comes from anymore. So, you know, you learn the interdependent system of food, fertility, soil, water, sunshine, if you garden. So there are other things if you do. So you can actually buy Will's product in Whole Foods in the South now too.
Nice.
But there's some great brands popping up in other places that I think we can support with our dollars as well. Vital Farms is a pasture-based egg production system. They're also doing butter now. I don't know if you guys have seen Vital Farms products.
Yep.
Yeah, I buy their eggs.
Typically get them in Kroger's and H-E-B sometimes and in Whole Foods.
Aren't they out of Austin?
Yes, they're out of Austin. Several great companies. Another great Austin company, Epic Provisions, right? So if people have heard of Epic Bar, they are just deeply committed to regenerative agriculture.
Oh, I love
you can
that.
find those in more stores now. If you throw your dollars towards Epic, you're helping this cause move along. Another great national brand that's showing up in more grocery stores around the country is Maple Hill Creamery. You can buy Maple Hill grass-fed yogurt in Kroger's now. We started seeing grass-fed milk in our Whole Foods in our neighborhood here in Texas. They come all the way from New York. That's where Maple Hill is. I was just on their farm, number one, Darmley Creamery. My friends Paul and Phyllis Van Amberg up there just doing a wonderful job in dairy. So eggs, dairy, beef, these things that are all being done regeneratively. If you can support them with your consumer dollar, that's not only putting money in the pockets of the people that are producing it, but it tells the retailers, hey, we want more shelf space for high quality products. I think that's a place where you can improve your family's health right away and have an impact on the system. So like, I don't drink a lot of milk, but as soon as I saw that Maple Hill milk show up at Whole Foods, like, I'm going to buy some. I'm not sure I'm going to do with it.
Right.
but you want to support them.
Yeah, support them, right? So, because I think that's how we kickstart this food system is with our dollars.
Totally.
For sure. Have you ever heard of thrivemarket.com?
Yeah, Thrive Market's doing great stuff too.
Love them.
And they're trying to bring another direct marketing organization nationally. Butcher Box is another one that's looking to push things forward. I think they're getting a lot of their product internationally now, which I think is fine. But they're a wonderful new entrant into this space, doing great stuff. I really like them. We started a scholarship here a couple of years ago for young farmers to come to our annual conference here with the Grass-Fed Exchange.
Right.
A group of philanthropists who call themselves the Herd started that out, and Butcher Box jumped in that team here this year, and they helped chip in to bring some young farmers to our conference. So we're real thankful to them.
That's awesome.
Is there no, go ahead, Cinthanie.
Nicole has a question. So it's a really good question too. She said, when you go out to eat, how do you politely ask about their meat? Do you ask them if it's grass-fed, grass-finished, or do you typically Google it before you go?
I do Google it before I go.
Okay.
But I must say it is really hard to find, in my view, quality product if you go out to eat. There's a lot of, I don't want to point any fingers, but questionable grass-fed products out there now, just like you have cage-free eggs, right, that meet some standard, but really aren't out there in pasture like the Vital Farms eggs. And so it's really hard to have high confidence yet. I think that will emerge in time. Joyce Farms does, who I mentioned earlier, does sell to restaurants up and down the East Coast. So if you see Joyce Farms show up on a restaurant menu, but I think you have to Google around. It's fun in my community. We always, if we go to a restaurant, we always ask, where'd you get your meat? And we usually get an answer back. It came from here. And we go, oh. So that happens a lot. And the good news is, I don't know whether it's good or bad. There's other good things going on in prepared meal space, and they can become really practical. But I think once you start eating real food again and you start cooking at home, that's where the quality, nourishing. You used to go out to get I used to go out to get a good steak.
Yes.
Now I take a good steak, I cook it at home, and I go to, if I have a steak, even at the finest restaurants, I'm always disappointed.
So true.
What pastured steak is at home. So I just don't do that so much anymore. If I go out, I'll frequently have seafood or something else like that.
That's one message that I find myself more commonly telling people that work with me, is the excuse of, well, I don't cook. And the reality is, if you have access to the internet and if you can read, you can learn to cook. Yeah. And my female ego of, well, I'm a doctor. I'm not the standard female, and I'm not going to stay at home and cook. Like that's stupid. And people need to get over themselves and realize that if you fully want to take over your health, you have to learn to cook, because even the highest quality restaurants that, claim that they're, all natural, organic, blah, blah, blah. They're still like, even Whole Foods, if you ask them, so they have these roasted Brussels sprouts, right? And on the thing, it says in olive oil. And I've got a friend who is very in tune with how her body reacts to stuff that like trans fats, like canola oil and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And she got it. And she actually had to get back, show me exactly what you're using to cook this. And sure enough, they weren't lying. They use olive oil, but they also use canola oil. And so you really have to be a detective for your own health. And I know when I lived in Oklahoma City, there was talk of this new restaurant that was, serving grass-fed beef. And I mean, it didn't take me long to get down to it. And the fact is that their beef was grass-fed, but grain finished. And most of the grain that these cows are eating are pesticide laden, GMO, and the cows are given grain to fatten them up, and it's going to fatten you up, and those chemicals are going to get into your body and affect your hormones and affect everything. And so just always be suspect and ask. Don't feel bad to ask and to gain more knowledge. You
have a right to your health.
Absolutely. So I know that you have been a speaker at Paleo FX for, what did you say, 5 years? Is that right?
No, I've been to Paleo FX. I didn't speak at Paleo FX, but yes, we were there. It was 5 years ago. It was like the first Paleo FX. Okay,
you've been going to Paleo FX since it came. Can you explain to the people that are not in this world that in our paleo world where like you're friends with Rob Wolf, like you said, can you explain to them what Paleo FX is? And because I think that that's one great source where you can find all of these good resources and get the word out, right?
Yeah, no. In fact, I often draw a parallel between the Grass-Fed Exchange and Paleo FX, where Grass-Fed Exchange is basically Paleo FX for farmers. Paleo FX is not a scientific conference. It's a how-to conference. Paleo FX is a group of people coming together to learn. Yes, there's science in the room on what's the latest thinking going on, but it's really focused on how, not how PhDs can debate the finer points of fat metabolism.
Right.
How do I, as someone who's concerned about my health, eat right and different? How do I exercise right and different? How do I live different, sleep, all these practical things that we do in our daily lives that are important for our own health. That's what Paleo FX is about. It's been going on in Austin now. I think 2012, if I remember right, was the first year. Might have been 2011. It's become kind of the go-to conference for health and fitness.
Right.
In the space now for people that are just trying to do better. In fact, if you go there, you get a very distorted view of the universe because all of a sudden it's like everyone is so healthy and fit.
Yep.
Right? It's like, and then if you walk out on the streets of Austin, now Austin's better than Houston, where I live.
Oh yeah.
You go, oh yes, there's a really big gap between the people in the room here. So
yes,
I think we still have a lot of practical challenges on how we reach out and engage people in a community that are not super zealots, let's say, on the space yet, but I think it comes along. My sense here is your community online is doing a lot of that. We're trying to, we need to reach more people. We as Grass-Fed Exchange are having that conversation now. How can, only 500 farmers can make it to the conference every year, but there's 50,000 out there that are trying to figure out how to make a living, right?
Right.
So how are you going to do that? So organizations like Paleo FX are a wonderful place to start. But we need to keep finding other ways to build out and share this knowledge and insight with other people.
Tell us top 3 things that you do every day to make you and your family healthier.
Eat only real food, sleep well, and smile.
I love that.
and I think that's probably at the top. We didn't talk much about sleep, but I'm one of the guys that used to get up to a 5 o'clock alarm every day after having been up late at night with all kinds of too busy activities. And one of the things that I did simultaneously with going back to eating real food was put a priority on sleep. And that becomes really important. And, smile may be a defense mechanism to all the other realities.
Maybe.
I have a real gravity towards the new and different. It's one of those things I didn't really realize in myself as I grew up. I was always trying to push the boundaries of, what my parents would let me get away with when I was a kid. And then I did that in energy technology for my first career. And now I'm doing it in farming. And when you're doing that, there's a lot of ups and downs, right? And I'm sure you've had the same thing in medicine and health and fitness yourself, right? There are days where you're just like, yes, right? And then it's like, oh God, not again, right?
Yes,
and
for
it's
sure.
That ability to step back and just smile and push through that stuff and realize, hey, it's just a roller coaster. There was that big drop, but there'll be another turn coming. It'll be okay.
Well, and I also think that it's never losing the belief that you yourself really can change the world. And it's the little things that you do every day that add up to big changes. And it's little people like you, myself, and Cinthanie that will change the world one little baby step at a time. And you know, it's little actions like smiling and choosing, it's just daily choice. And so I truly, I've got such a passion to reach the people, because a majority of people that find me initially have zero, they don't even know what grass-fed beef is.
Right.
they just want to shake their,
I don't blame them.
right,
So, yeah.
right. They just want to shake their booty with me on YouTube. and then they start listening to our message. And that's what I really want the listener to realize, is that you might not have a social media following. You might not have a podcast, you might not have a whatever, but you have a voice. And the first step is you have to take action to take care of your own health, and then use that voice so that you can empower others around you to take back their health. It's crazy right now. We are in, I'm not sure if I think I did tell you about this, but we're doing this beta test group where for 12 weeks, it's almost 700 people in this group. Okay. Mm-hmm. For 12 weeks, everyone is eating a whole foods-based diet that's higher in fat, moderate protein, and lower in carbohydrates. And we're using intermittent fasting and daily Shakeology. And we haven't even hit the 3-week mark. And of course, people are losing weight in inches. That right, was like given. But yeah, people's disease processes, I can't even make this up. I interviewed this girl on my live broadcast a couple days ago. Her mom, who has been diabetic for years and has been fighting macular degeneration, which every single conventional medicine doctor will tell you it's not reversible. She has to go see an eye doctor every 3 months. And after the examination, he literally was like, I don't see anything. What are you doing? Right. And that's why I got in the group last night. I'm like, I want you to list your medical problems, because there's so many medical problems that you don't even think about are connected to your lifestyle, your food, your everything, that I want you to be aware of and watch them reverse.
Yeah. When we started down this real food thing, it was because of my dad, but my wife was in the early stages of a hyperthyroid condition. They detected, with ultrasound, the nodules in her thyroid. We both started feeling healthier. Next time she went in, the doctor said they're gone. Right?
Gives me chills. That's awesome.
And he said, well, that can't be, but they're gone. Right? He had no explanation.
But it is.
But they're gone. My mom, just about a year and a half ago now, she'd had lifelong diabetes. I kept harping on her, and sometimes family is always the hardest to get there.
Of course.
And she'd had back surgery, so she had some leg pain. And then she said, but now my other leg is hurting. And I said, Mom, that's not a back problem. That's diabetic neuropathy. So I really hammered her hard. I said, we're going to just cut out all the sugar. And indeed, the pain went away. Her A1C fell. And all these things. And I'm still learning too. So please don't.
Of course.
I think part of this is lifelong experimentation. I just did my first 5-day fast here a couple months ago. And it was the most awesome thing I've done in years. It was like, oh my God, I'm going to do another one here right after the holidays. And I was like, that feels like a nice little tool to mix into my system. So
absolutely. Are you familiar with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Jason Fung? Mm-hmm. So we actually did a podcast about fasting, because that's one thing that I think so many people are scared of, and they have definitely some misbeliefs, if you will, about fasting. And so that episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast is a really good one. But I think that everyone would benefit from at least a 24-hour fast. But I'm trying to think of the PhD, the doc that recommends a 7-day fast once a year just for cancer prevention. I'll figure that out in the show notes.
The guy that pushed me over the edge was Walter Longo. He's down there at UC San Diego, so near you. That might be him. And he's done a lot of published research recently. And he talked about stem cell regeneration, cancer prevention. I'm like, oh, okay. And again, as an innovator, I'm always the one that likes to try something new.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, even though I've been whole and real food, day 2 and 3 were tough. I was, oh God, I got to push through this. But day 4 and 5 were like light bulbs went off, right?
Right. Yeah. You felt like Superman.
Yeah, I did. I felt like Superman, and I still feel great. Like I said, I can't wait to do it. And I know some people that do it more frequently, but I think that's all a part about the adaptation and learning. One of the things that makes this hard is the principles are simple, but it's not an instruction book. It's not like do ABC and you're done. You're good forever.
Right.
As long as you incorporate this idea that I'm going to apply these principles and keep learning, then I think, there's really no limit to how far we can take our health. I think we can all live healthy and vibrant lives for a long period of time.
But it starts with us, and that's the most important.
The good news is you're in complete control. No one can stuff food in your face for you.
Amen.
In fact, at this point, the worst place to be in the world is a hospital. Very few hospitals get this yet, right? So
that's why I left medicine. I'm just saying. It's been 2 years exactly this month, and I haven't missed practicing medicine in the hospital since that day. I miss the people. Don't get me wrong. I love the people that I worked with, but don't miss the hospital setting at all. So we end every single episode with Cinthanie giving a message for our listeners that really pertains to every single episode. And Cinthanie, will you end our episode for us?
Yeah. So my message for you every single day, always, is that you are a good person and you deserve good things to happen to you.
Amen. So Russ, we thank you so much for spending this Friday morning with us. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. Make sure that you go and subscribe to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. We would love it if you'd leave a review. And we thank every single one of you for your positivity, love, support, and we will see you next week. Ciao. Make sure that you find us on social media. You can find Cinthanie on Instagram and Facebook at Cinthanie. So that's CINTHANIE, and on Snapchat at Cinthanie P. And find me on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Club Fitz Fitness. Remember, that's FITZ Fitness. And on Snapchat, just at Club Fitz. I appreciate your time listening so much. If you enjoyed this episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast, can you please go do me a favor and go subscribe at whatever platform that it is that you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. We read every single review, and we appreciate the time that you take to leave your thoughts and opinions. Now, also remember, while I am a medical doctor, the information I provide here is not intended to provide medical advice or a professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or to any other individual. I am providing general information for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for medical or professional care. You should not use this information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. The information I share is not intended to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease or medical condition. If you believe you have a medical emergency, just call 911 immediately or your physician. Now, enough of that medical legal jargon. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your time. Now, go live a Fitz and Healthy life.